Hello, everyone. Well, the text I have held just now is an exposition. The title of the article is "In Search of a Davos Man," and I think this is a professional topic. So I'd like my students. I like to say something about my teaching plan of this article. First of all, I like my students to watch a movie clip to know something about the lifestyle of a typical Davos man, because maybe they are not so familiar with a Davos man, the lifestyle. So what is the Davos man? And try to let them to find out there's some connection or relationship between Davos man and globalization. And after that, after watching the movie clip, I like my students to write a short essay. I like them to form groups, 3 or 4 people in one group, and then I let them to write short essays in one group, and of each group, about their understanding of Davos man. So what is Davos man in their opinions, And after 3 or 4 minutes of writing, and then I like them to exchange their articles and to have a look at each other's, explanation or interpretation of this Davos man, because this is a very useful way for them to arouse their interest in learning this article. Because I think, in my opinion, students always show great interest in themselves, each other. Yeah, they are classmates, and they are familiar with each other in their daily life. So if I like them to learn something about, to evaluate each other's articles and their interpretation and understanding of a term, not so familiar term, I think it will be a good way to arouse their interest to learning something about this article. And after that, I like to give them. To give them some time to read this article briefly and try to analyze this text together. In this paragraph 1 to 2, we can obviously find that the author gives us 2 examples, very specific examples. That is William Browder and Alex Mandel. For William Browder, he was born in Princeton, and he grew in Chicago and studied in California. But actually, for the first 16 years of his 40 years, he lived in London and then to Moscow. And now he was a British citizen. He is a British citizen. So it's obvious that he is a very typical Davos man. And another example is Alex Mandel. He was born in Austria, and now he's running a French company, and he's also doing business in China. And he also identifies himself as an American. And this is the paragraph 1 to 2. And then to 3 to 5, we can have the further explanation to, in paragraph 3, Davos man, this term, has been explained very clearly. And then in paragraph 4 and 5, we have further interpretation about that and different angles of understanding of this term. And in paragraph 6, that can be called a transitional paragraph, because we know something about the history of the Davos man, And then from 7 to 9, paragraph 7 to 9, we talk about something about current, development of Davos man, a current situation of globalization related to Davos man, And in paragraph 10, the author also talks about some barriers to further, communicate with different countries in such a current situation. And in the last paragraph 11, we have a further question, that is whether it will take another 140 years for Davos man to figure out how to strike the same balance on a global scale. The reason why I analyze the text is because, and typical exposition is to inform actually compared to argumentation is to convince readers of something. Exposition the aim is to inform something. So sometimes we meet some very professional topic, and I think this is a very good way to lecture on some, to talk about something easy to and difficult points. Just like this article show you, this is a very useful way to teach our students to learn something about exposition, and try to tell them the methods the author used. For example, the illustration and some comparison to show how similar things are, or to contrast to show how things are different. And this all are the useful ways to develop an exposition. And then I like to lecture on some specific vocabularies because, in my opinion, this is also a very big part for today's college students, because sometimes we meet some problems. Our students don't know how to use their vocabulary in suitable or appropriate context. They often use a very formal word, for example, a terminate, to explain and or put an end to, but actually their article is very informal, so it will sound strange, right? And also I will analyze some long sentences, because in English we have quite different ways to express our ideas, and the sentence often show us the recursiveness, and it is quite different from Chinese, so I like them to practice more about that. And at the end of the text, and I like to say something about the writing skills, because writing is a very, very, very important part for language learning, for English learning especially. Actually, the obstacle they meet in learning how to write, sometimes it's not because they don't know how to express their ideas. Sometimes because they cannot think about things deeply. That is to say, language actually is a carrier of thought. And the very practical problems, very realistic problems I have met, that is my students don't have a very good habit to think about things deeply. So I will stimulate them to think about things deeply through this article, to lead them step by step to the topic of this article, and then try to establish for them to help them to establish a very good habit, develop a very good habit to think about things deeply, and don't just dwell on the superficial point. And to further talk about my topic is the output of language is very important in nowadays English study, because according to the feedback of my students who have graduated from high school from college, they told me that they have met some practical problems, realistic problems, when they are working in their company, because they often need to write something or speak with foreigners, and the output appears to be a very very big obstacle, because they practice too much, too many input practice when they were in college, reading or listening, but they don't have many practice about output. So I think for a practical purpose, we as college English teachers, I should let my students know that to learn some way to develop their output and their practical skills to write something, to express their thoughts in English properly, I think. At the end of this class, I like my students to further write something about globalization, the topic globalization, and their points of view about globalization. I think this is my teaching plan arrangement. Thank you so much.
Okay, here are two questions. The first one. Are the terms of globalization and national identity opposed to each other in business life, according to the author?
not exactly, actually. According to this article, it's not a very, extremely opposite terms. And actually, keeping a national identity is also very important. And also, globalization is also, I think this is a relative term. And we should try to enlarge our globalization. But actually, we should also keep our national identity.
Now, what does they also tell us?
He says that sorry, I forgot it.
Does he offer us different views on this issue?
Yeah, sure, he did, but what is that?
Now the second question. Tell us how much you know about the title of the text.
The title?
Yes. In Search of Davos Man.
Davos Man, yeah. How much I know about this title?
What is Davos Man?
Yeah, Davos Man is a very typical man. Yeah, Davos Man is a member of an international elite trekking annually to the Swiss, Alpine town for an annual meeting of the World Economic Forum, and they are a typical, representative of the development of the globalization of economy in the world. Yeah.
Yes.
So, in search of Davos Man, so I think is try to seek more globalization of the whole world.
What does in search of mean?
In search of that is looking for.
So, yeah. What does the whole title tell us?
The whole title means let's try our best to find more such Davos Man to seek, a better globalization.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.